I use around 10 AI tools for 90% of my work, and each one excels in one specific area. But figuring out which tool works best for what task, that usually takes months of trial and error. So I'm going to save you all that time. I'll break down the one thing each tool does better than everything else, so you walk away with a clear mental model for when to use what. I've grouped these tools into 4 categories across a 2-part series. There's just too much to cover in one video. This one covers everyday AI and specialist AI. Part 2 handles the rest. Let's get into it. Kicking things off with everyday AI. These are your general-purpose chatbots, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. And while they seem interchangeable on the surface, their superpowers, the specific things they do best, have actually become very distinct. Let me show you. Starting with the OG, ChatGPT. Now, Gemini and Claude are arguably just as capable in raw intelligence, but ChatGPT still holds the crown in one critical area. It is the most obedient model. In plain English, ChatGPT drops fewer balls when you hand it a complex checklist. Other models might be just as smart, but give them a lengthy set of instructions and they'll sometimes skip a step, or just decide they know better. If you want proof, just try this. Ask each model to optimize a rough prompt for itself. ChatGPT will generate a noticeably longer, more detailed prompt because it knows it can handle the complexity. And if you run that optimized ChatGPT prompt through both ChatGPT and Gemini, you'll notice 2 things. First, ChatGPT thinks longer. It's actually checking every requirement, and it follows each instruction to the letter. Gemini, on the other hand, often takes shortcuts. Pro tip, I share the exact prompt optimizer template in my Essential Power Prompts resource linked below. But you can test this yourself right now with something as simple as optimize this prompt for ChatGPT/insert model version. Here's my rough prompt. Let me give you a real-world example. I gave both ChatGPT and Gemini the exact same complex prompt, a hiring rubric with about a dozen requirements. ChatGPT delivered on every single one. Gemini's output? It looked right at first glance, but when I checked it against my original list, it had quietly dropped a few rules. That's the key difference. ChatGPT doesn't decide which instructions matter. It just follows them. Here's an even simpler example. Sometimes when you explicitly tell Gemini to search the web, it just doesn't. Which is kind of wild when you think about it, right? Gemini and Google Search are literally both Google products. But with ChatGPT, when you enable web search, it performs the web search every single time. I know that seems like a small thing, but it's downstream from ChatGPT's core superpower. Obedience means you can trust the behavior you ask for. So here's your rule of thumb. If a task has a lot of moving parts and getting even one wrong breaks the whole thing, start with ChatGPT. Next up, Gemini. Where ChatGPT wins on obedience, Gemini wins on multimodality. In plain English, Gemini is able to process a massive amount of mixed media, video, audio, images, and text, all natively. Take a look at this comparison. Only Gemini can handle all 4 types natively. It can literally listen to audio and watch video, while ChatGPT and Claude have to use workarounds to access that information. And on top of that, Gemini's massive 1 million token context window means it can handle huge video files, hour-long audio recordings, full slide decks all together that would literally choke the other models. If you caught my latest Gemini deep dive, you'll remember this. I screen recorded a messy walkthrough of myself completing a task, uploaded that raw video into Gemini, and asked it to turn it into a ready-to-use SOP with perfect formatting. That's Gemini ingesting video and turning it into structured text. But let's take that a step further. Imagine you just wrapped up a weekly team meeting. You've got the video recording of the call, a 20-slide deck that was presented, and a photo of a messy whiteboard brainstorm. You can upload all 3 into Gemini and ask it to summarize what was discussed, pull out the key decisions, and draft a follow-up email. Gemini is the only tool that can synthesize all 3 inputs in one shot. Now, full transparency, Gemini's raw reasoning sometimes feels slightly behind ChatGPT, but when the task involves video, audio, or massive mixed media files, the trade-off is absolutely worth it. Rounding out the everyday AI category, Claude. Claude's superpower is producing higher quality first drafts than the other models. In plain English, Claude's first attempt is usually closer to done, and this shows up in 2 key areas. Area 1, coding. Here's a fun fact. The latest version of Gemini beat the older version of Claude in every single benchmark score, except for the coding one. Which is kind of crazy, right? Anthropic has clearly figured out something about code that the others haven't. And in practice, developers pretty universally agree Claude writes functional code on the first try more consistently than the alternatives. Real-world example. I needed to bulk export conversations from a customer service platform. Their support team told me only a developer could do it.
I described the problem to Claude. It didn't just give me step-by-step instructions, it wrote a complete script in Go that worked on the first try. I don't even know what Go is. And I definitely can't write code. Another example, I asked all three models to turn a static image into an interactive chart. Claude performed the best on the first try. So basically, anything that requires generating working code tends to favor Claude.
Once you share examples of your existing work, it replicates your tone almost perfectly. When I was in corporate, I'd share previous documents so Claude could replicate that voice across presentations and performance reviews. And now, as a creator, I feed it my existing YouTube scripts to help refine new drafts. At this point, you might be wondering, how do I actually use all three together? In a nutshell, ChatGPT or Gemini usually handles the beginning of my work: ideation, research, drafting an outline. Claude then handles the last mile, turning that rough output into something I'm ready to present or publish. Quick note on Grok. A lot of people ask why I don't mention it. It's actually very simple. Grok's superpower is its direct access to the Twitter/X fire hose. It's the best option if you need to analyze breaking news or trending conversations in real time. I've never needed that. And here's an important principle. We should never use tools just for the sake of using tools. Only add them to your toolkit when they solve an actual problem you have. Here's a quick recap of all three models and when to reach for each one. And if you're wondering whether you need all three, the short answer is no. Most people should stick with the paid version of ChatGPT and get really good at it. But if you can afford multiple subscriptions and your workflow genuinely benefits from their individual superpowers, mix and match is needed. Fun fact, according to this study on OpenRouter data, models from different labs, like ChatGPT and Gemini, actually expand the total pie of AI use cases precisely because they excel at different things. On to the second category, specialist AI. But before diving in, let's clear up a very common misconception. Tools like Perplexity are not foundational models. Here's a simple way to think about it. OpenAI is a frontier AI lab. They developed the GPT family of models. They also built ChatGPT as the user-friendly app layer on top. Perplexity is different. It fine-tunes existing foundational models for speed and accuracy, optimized specifically for search. Their Sonar model, for example, is just a fine-tuned version of Meta's open-weight Llama model. So on that note, Perplexity's superpower is finding accurate information fast. In plain English, the general-purpose chatbots are built for reasoning. You use them to help you think, brainstorm, or write a draft. Perplexity is built for fetching. You need a specific fact, and you need it now. Simple real-life example. I use ChatGPT to plan a trip to Japan with my brother because that's a creative task. It requires weighing trade-offs, building an itinerary narrative. For that kind of work, I'm happy to wait while the model thinks. But when I needed grab-and-go information, like whether a specific restaurant is foreigner-friendly because we don't speak Japanese, I want Perplexity to give me accurate, up-to-date information within seconds. Second example. Going back to my content workflow, Gemini or ChatGPT helps me brainstorm and structure my newsletter. Claude produces the final draft. Perplexity? It's the search scalpel that verifies specific facts. Like confirming whether Gemini's context window is 1 million or 2 million tokens. In case you're curious, consumers get 1 million, enterprises get 2 million. Pro tip, you can use Google-style search operators in Perplexity. For example, typing site:/reddit.com narrows your results to just Reddit. Rounding out the specialist AI category, NotebookLM. Its superpower is that it only answers from the sources you give it, meaning it basically won't make things up. Think of it like a walled garden. You upload your sources. NotebookLM answers questions using only those documents. It can't really hallucinate because it has no outside knowledge to draw from. Going back to our visual from earlier, just like Perplexity is optimized for search, NotebookLM uses a fine-tuned Gemini model that's specifically designed to minimize hallucinations. Here's how I used this at Google. Before publishing marketing materials, I would upload the final draft alongside the original source documents. Then I'd ask NotebookLM, does the draft make any claims that contradict the sources? And it would catch these tiny discrepancies that other AI tools might have missed completely. I use a similar workflow today for my videos. Before I start filming, I upload my script and all my research into NotebookLM and ask it to flag anything that's not directly supported by the source material. The obvious caveat, the output is only as good as the sources you give it. If your sources are wrong, NotebookLM is going to be confidently wrong right along with them. So the rule of thumb, if accuracy matters more than creativity and you have source materials to check against, use NotebookLM. There are a few more specialist AI tools I use regularly that didn't make the main list because I don't reach for them every single day, but let me quickly run through them. Gamma for presentations, 11 Labs for voice cloning, Zapier and N8N for automation, Excalidraw and Napkin AI for quick visuals and diagrams. As a reminder, I'll cover the remaining 2 categories in part 2, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. See you on the next video. In the meantime, have a great one.